Dr. Juan Kim's fingers trembled as she traced the ancient lines on the yellowed paper. The underground archive room was cold and quiet. Only the soft hum of air filters broke the silence. She had been working here for 3 months, sorting through files that hadn't been touched in decades. "This can't be real," she whispered to herself. The schematics laid out before her showed a ship unlike anything humans had built. Its shape was strange, not aerodynamic like modern spacecraft, but something almost organic. The measurements made no sense. If built to scale, the vessel would be 3 times larger than Earth's biggest space station. Juan pushed her glasses up and reached for her tablet to scan the documents. The archive rules were strict. Nothing left this secure facility, but she needed to run some calculations that her tired brain couldn't process. The tablet beeped as it finished the scan. The numbers confirmed her suspicion. The power requirements alone would need a new kind of energy source, and the materials listed for the hull. Some didn't even exist in modern periodic tables. "Dr. Kim," a voice called from the doorway. "It's past midnight." She looked up to see Minho, the night security guard. His kind face showed concern. "I'll leave soon," she promised. "Just found something interesting." After he left, Juan turned to the most troubling part of the designs. The weapons systems. Unlike the defensive shields and conventional weapons on modern ships, these seemed designed to alter reality itself. Notes in the margins described phase displacement and dimensional folding, theoretical concepts that modern physics hadn't even properly explored. Who created these? The documents had no signatures, no dates, nothing to indicate their origin. They were filed under theoretical designs, 20th century, but the technology shown was centuries beyond that time. Juan gathered her things and placed the documents in the high-security storage. She would need to report this to her supervisor tomorrow. Sleep didn't come easily that night. In her small apartment, Juan stared at the ceiling, her mind racing with calculations and questions. When she finally drifted off, she dreamed of vast ships moving through space, disappearing and reappearing like ghosts. The next morning, her supervisor, Director Hyun, listened patiently as she explained her discovery. "You believe these designs are beyond our current technology?" he asked when she finished. "Not just beyond, sir. They break fundamental laws of physics as we understand them." Juan opened her tablet to show her calculations. The energy system described here would need to harness dark matter in ways we've only theorized. And the propulsion system. It's not using thrust at all. It's bending space. Director Hyun nodded slowly. "I'll take this to the committee. Keep this to yourself for now." 3 days later, Juan was called to a meeting unlike any she had attended before. The room was underground, with no windows and multiple security checkpoints. Around a large table sat military officials, scientists, and government representatives. "Dr. Kim," began a woman at the head of the table, "I'm General Sujin Lee. Please tell everyone what you found." Juan explained her discovery again, this time with more details. The room remained silent throughout her presentation. When she finished, a man in a dark suit spoke up. "Dr. Kim, what you found matches something else we've been monitoring." He nodded to General Lee. The general tapped on her tablet, and a large screen lit up at the end of the room. It showed a pattern of signals, repeating in regular intervals. "These began 3 months ago," explained the general. "They're coming from deep space, aimed directly at Earth's military communication networks. They're trying to hack our systems." Juan frowned. "What does this have to do with the schematics?" "The signals contain fragments of code that match symbols found in your discovery," said the man in the suit. "We believe whoever sent these knows about the ship designs." The room grew tense with this revelation. "Are you suggesting these plans were left for us to find?" asked Juan. "That's one theory," replied General Lee. "Another is that they were hidden here by someone who knew what was coming." The meeting continued for hours. Scientists argued about the feasibility of the designs. Military officials debated the threat level of the transmissions. Through it all, Juan sat quietly, her mind racing. Near the end, General Lee called for a vote. We have two options. Ignore these designs as theoretical impossibilities, or attempt to build this vessel as a precaution against whatever is sending these signals. The vote was close, but the decision was made. They would build the ship. As people filed out of the room, Director Hyun approached Ju-won. They want you to lead the research team. Your understanding of the designs is most complete. Me? But I'm just an archivist with a physics background. This needs the best minds in the world. And they'll be working with you, he said. This project is now the highest priority for Earth's defense. Over the next weeks, Ju-won barely saw daylight. Her small team grew to include engineers, physicists, and linguists trying to decipher the strange symbols that appeared throughout the schematics. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Late one night, Dr. Jin-woo Park, a quantum physicist, burst into Ju-won's office. "I've figured out the power source," he exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "It's not generating energy. It's channeling it from somewhere else." Tests confirmed his theory. The system described in the schematics could open tiny gateways to other dimensions, drawing energy from them. This solved the impossible power requirements. More breakthroughs followed. The strange materials turned out to be common elements arranged in new molecular structures. The propulsion system worked by creating controlled singularities. But the weapons remained a mystery. According to the designs, they could remove objects from reality, not destroying them, but making them cease to exist in our dimension. Meanwhile, the transmissions from space grew more frequent. Military systems worldwide reported intrusion attempts, and now they were accompanied by strange energy readings from the outer solar system. 6 months after Ju-won's discovery, the Security Council met in emergency session. The evidence was clear. Earth was being targeted by something unknown but technologically advanced. The decision was unanimous. Construction of the warship would begin immediately, using all resources available to humanity. As Ju-won left the council chamber, General Lee handed her a sealed order. "You've been appointed Chief Science Officer for Project Nemesis," she said. "The fate of humanity may depend on this ship." Ju-won looked at the order, remembering the peaceful days in the archives when her biggest concern was cataloging old files. Now she carried the weight of an entire planet. "I'll do my best," she said softly, knowing the true challenge was just beginning. The massive doors of the space elevator slid open with a hiss. Captain Taehyun Park stepped out onto the observation deck of orbital shipyard Delta 9 and felt his breath catch in his throat. Before him, floating in the vacuum of space, was Nemesis. Even half-built, the warship was unlike anything humanity had ever created. Its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflected it, making it appear like a ship-shaped hole in space. Workers in specialized suits crawled over its surface like tiny ants. "Impressive, isn't it?" said a voice beside him. Taehyun turned to see Dr. Ju-won Kim, the woman who had discovered the ancient schematics. She looked different from the photos in her file, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. "Dr. Kim," he nodded respectfully. "The reports don't do it justice." "Just Ju-won, please," she said with a tired smile. "And yes, photos can't capture its presence." Taehyun understood what she meant. Even from this distance, Nemesis seemed to have a weight beyond its physical mass, as if it bent not just light but attention itself toward it. "How are the systems coming along?" he asked as they walked along the viewing platform. "We're at 60% completion. The main hull is nearly done, but the internal systems are challenging. We've had to invent new tools just to work with some of the materials." A small team of engineers floated past the window, guiding a massive panel toward the ship's open side. "That's from the Brazilian team," explained Ju-won. "The best metallurgists in the world." The panel looks simple, but it's actually millions of nanomachines working together. Taehyun had studied the reports, but seeing the actual construction was different. "And the crew quarters. My team will need to start training soon. Ready for inspection. Though I should warn you, they're not what you'd expect on a military vessel." The crew quarters were indeed surprising. Instead of the tight, functional spaces Taehyun was used to from his years in Earth's Space Force, Nemesis had curving corridors and rooms that seemed to adjust their size subtly as you moved through them. The design favors organic shapes, explained Juwon as they floated through the main corridor. We tried making them more conventional, but the systems wouldn't integrate properly. Taehyun ran his hand along a wall. It felt warm, almost like skin. It's like the ship has preferences. That's an interesting way to put it, Juwon said carefully. The materials respond to their environment in ways we're still understanding. Their tour continued to the bridge, which was unlike any command center Taehyun had seen. Instead of facing forward, the stations were arranged in a circle around a central point. The captain's station, he asked, pointing to the center. Not exactly. That's the navigation hub. The ship doesn't have a traditional helm. It responds to coordinated input from all stations simultaneously. Taehyun frowned. That's going to require a new command structure. Yes, that's why we requested you specifically, Captain. Your experience with experimental vessels during the Mars conflicts makes you uniquely qualified. Taehyun didn't correct her, but he knew the truth. It wasn't just his experience that got him this assignment. After leading the controversial operation that ended the Mars conflicts, he had become both a hero and a pariah. This assignment was as much about using his skills as it was about keeping him away from public view. Over the following weeks, Taehyun selected his command crew. Unlike traditional military assignments, he was given unusual freedom to choose based on intuition rather than just records. The ship responds to certain personality types better than others, Juwon had explained cryptically. His first officer was Hana-song, a brilliant tactician with a photographic memory. His chief engineer, Do-Hyun Lee, was famous for solving problems that stumped others. Each crew member had unique abilities that somehow matched different systems of the ship. As construction neared completion, strange reports began to surface. Tools would go missing, only to appear in places they were needed before anyone realized they were needed there. Computer systems would run simulations without being prompted. Then came the whispers. I heard it again last night, said engineer Myung Kang during a staff meeting. Her hands trembled slightly. Near junction 47B. Words I couldn't understand, but definitely voices. Others nodded. Similar reports had come from all sections of the ship. Could it be sound leaking through the communication systems? Suggested Hana. We've checked, replied Do-Hyun. All systems were offline in that section. Taehyun looked to Juwon, who had been quiet during the exchange. Dr. Kim, your thoughts? She hesitated. There's something about this ship we still don't understand. The materials themselves have properties that seem to change when assembled in certain configurations. Are you suggesting the ship is alive? Asked Hana, voicing what everyone was thinking. Not alive in a biological sense, Juwon clarified, but perhaps aware in ways we don't yet comprehend. The final phase of construction arrived. The weapons systems, the most mysterious part of the design, were being installed. These required specially trained teams working in complete isolation from other systems. Taehyun was present for the final integration. From a secure observation room, he watched as technicians in special suits made the connections. This is the part I don't understand, he said to Juwon, who stood beside him. How can a weapon make something cease to exist? It doesn't destroy matter or energy, she explained. It shifts it elsewhere, like changing the channel on an old television. As the final connections were made, all lights in the shipyard flickered. For a moment, Taehyun felt as if he were in two places at once, here in the observation room and somewhere vast and dark and old. The feeling passed quickly, but he noticed Juwon gripping the railing tightly. You felt it too. She nodded. It's getting stronger. The day before Nemesis was scheduled for its first systems test, the shipyard's AI, Athena, reported something unexpected. The completed vessel exhibits 23% more system capability than the original schematics indicated. the calm voice announced during the project briefing. A murmur ran through the room. Could this be an error in measurement? Asked General Sujin Lee, who had arrived to witness the test. Negative, replied Athena. Multiple verification protocols confirm the finding. Nemesis has developed capabilities beyond its design parameters. Developed? Repeated Taehyun. You mean it's evolving? That would be the closest human analog, Captain Park. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had built something that was now building itself. Later that night, Taehyun stood alone on the observation deck, looking at the completed warship. Tomorrow, he would take command officially. Tomorrow, they would see if this mysterious vessel could protect Earth from whatever was coming. As he watched, he could have sworn that, just for a moment, the darkness of the ship's hull swirled like liquid before settling back into solid form. The test flight was supposed to be simple. Nemesis would leave Earth's orbit, travel to the far side of the moon, and return. The mission would test basic movement and life support systems only. No weapons, no advanced technology, just a quiet demonstration that the ship could fly. Captain Taehyun Park sat in the central chamber of Nemesis, his crew at their stations around him. The circular bridge hummed with nervous energy as final checks were completed. All systems ready, Captain, reported Hana, her fingers dancing across her control panel. Life support optimal, added Medical Officer Sunwoo. Taehyun nodded, feeling the strange warmth of his command seat. Unlike conventional captain's chairs, this one seemed to mold itself to his body. Begin undocking sequence, he ordered. The massive clamps holding Nemesis to the shipyard released with a dull thud that echoed through the hull. For a moment, the ship drifted silently. Engage primary drive, Taehyun said. Engineer Do-hyun tapped his controls. Primary drive engaged at 10%. The ship moved forward so smoothly that Taehyun would not have known they were moving if not for the view screens showing the shipyard falling away behind them. This is Nemesis to control. We are clear of the station and proceeding with test flight path, Taehyun reported. Acknowledged, Nemesis. You are clear to proceed, came the voice of Dr. Ju-won Kim from Mission Control. The ship accelerated toward the moon, performing exactly as expected. Too perfectly, in fact. Taehyun noticed how little input was needed from the crew. The ship seemed to anticipate commands before they were given. Captain, called Mayung from the sensor station. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the outer system. Source? Asked Taehyun. Unknown. They appeared suddenly. Wait. She frowned at her display. They're moving. Fast. Multiple objects approaching from beyond Mars orbit. Taehyun felt a chill. This wasn't part of the test. Full sensor sweep. Are they natural objects? Negative, sir. Definite artificial construction. Massive energy signatures. I count 12 vessels. No, 14. They're accelerating toward us. Control, are you tracking these objects? Taehyun asked, opening the channel to Earth. Affirmative, Nemesis, replied Ju-won, her voice tense. Return to Earth immediately. Test is aborted. Taehyun turned to Do-hyun. Turn us around. Full power. The ship responded instantly, pivoting in space without the usual thrust adjustments a normal spacecraft would require. As they accelerated back toward Earth, the communication officer called out, Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's not in any Earth language. Can we translate it? The ship answered before the officer could. Words appeared on the main screen as an alien voice spoke through the ship's systems. 18 Intion human vessel. UAHV and UCTDA forbidden TCANOLOG. Surrender your ship MMEDDATLI or face EXTINC2IN. This is TH ONLOIDOVODOAR. Ainmo. UYL receive. The bridge fell silent. Who are they? Whispered Hannah. The ship provided another translation as if responding to her question. We are EKECAELURIAN, he GEMONANI, GURDIANs, of ORDR in THES CC2R. Your species HAs TROOCIST, a BIBO in DERA. Compliancy is mandatory. The sensor display updated, showing the alien vessels accelerating even faster. Their formation spread out, clearly intending to surround Nemesis. Control, we've been contacted by something calling itself the Kalurian hegemony, Taehyun reported. They're demanding we surrender the ship. Please advise. The response took longer than expected. Nemesis, this is General Lee. Return to Earth at maximum speed. The Security Council is meeting now. Diplomatic channels are being attempted. As they approached Earth orbit, Taehyun could see that the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The alien ships had closed half the distance already. Based on their speed, they would reach Earth within hours. New transmission coming in, announced the communications officer. The alien voice sounded again, this time with a harder edge. Your ATMPTs at DPLOMACEREGCTED. The vessel must be Suarain Failure to Psiomempili, Whale or EZULT in planetary Kiliensing. Taehyun felt the blood drain from his face. Control, did you receive that? We did, Captain. This time, it was the President's voice. Captain Park, the Security Council has authorized Defensive Protocol Alpha. The crew exchanged worried glances. They had been briefed on the protocol, but never expected to use it, especially not during a simple test flight. Madam President, are you certain? Taehyun asked. We haven't tested any weapons systems. We have no choice, Captain. Earth's entire defense fleet couldn't stop one of those ships, let alone 14. Intelligence suggests they represent a coalition of 7 advanced species. We are authorizing you to activate all systems. Taehyun took a deep breath. Understood. Initiating Defensive Protocol Alpha. He placed his palm on the special panel that had been installed on his command station. It read his biometrics, then glowed blue. Voice authorization required, said the ship system. Captain Taehyun Park. Authorization code Omega 75 Delta 9. The ship's lights dimmed for a moment, then brightened with a subtle shift in color. Panels that had been dormant lit up around the bridge. All advanced systems online, reported Dohyun, sounding surprised. Captain, the ship is changing. Taehyun felt it too. The entire vessel seemed to pulse with energy. New displays appeared, showing systems none of them had seen before. The Kalurian fleet has entered Earth orbit, reported Mayang. They're deploying smaller vessels, thousands of them. The main screen showed the alien armada. Their ships were beautiful and terrible, gleaming constructions that moved with impossible grace. Each one dwarfed the largest Earth vessels. They're charging weapons, Hannah said, her voice steady despite the fear evident on her face. Before Taehyun could give an order, Nemesis moved. Without any input from the crew, the ship accelerated toward the alien fleet. Displays around the bridge showed energy building in systems they didn't understand. Captain, I can't control the ship, shouted Dohyun, his hands moving frantically over his panel. All of you, step away from your stations, ordered Taehyun. Something inside him knew what was happening. Let the ship do what it was built to do. The crew obeyed, watching in awe as Nemesis positioned itself between Earth and the alien fleet. The lead Kalurian vessel fired. A beam of energy lanced toward Nemesis, only to be absorbed completely by the dark hull. Then Nemesis responded. There was no beam, no explosion, no conventional weapon discharge. Instead, a wave of distortion spread from the ship in all directions. As it touched each alien vessel, something impossible happened. They didn't break apart. They didn't explode. They simply weren't there anymore. One moment, Earth orbit held the most powerful armada humans had ever witnessed. The next moment, empty space. 14 massive ships and thousands of smaller vessels, gone, as if they had never existed. The bridge crew stood in shocked silence. Earth Control was calling frantically, but no one moved to answer. "What just happened?" Hannah finally whispered. Taehyun stared at the empty space on the view screen. "I think we just found out what this ship really does." The displays returned to normal. The strange energy that had filled the ship receded. Control of the systems returned to the crew stations. "Captain," said Myung quietly, "there's no debris, no radiation, no sign they were ever here. It's as if they were erased from reality." Taehyun nodded slowly. "Control, this is Nemesis. The Kalurian fleet has been neutralized. Earth is safe." He didn't know how to explain what had happened. How could he tell them that humanity now possessed a weapon that didn't just destroy, but remove things from existence itself? As they turned back toward the shipyard, Taehyun noticed something on his personal display. Words that hadn't been there before. "First filter complete. Seven more remain." The message arrived 3 days after the Kalurian fleet vanished. It came through channels humans had never used before, appearing simultaneously on every communication system on Earth. The translation was perfect, as if the sender knew Earth languages intimately. "Tension Earth leadership. The Galactic Council demands explanation for Caelurian extinction event. Respond within one planetary rotation, or face degenient." In the hastily assembled war room beneath Geneva, Earth's leaders debated their response. Holographic displays showed 7 more alien fleets moving toward the solar system from different directions. "We have no choice," argued General Lee, pointing at the displays. "They're coming to destroy us for what Nemesis did. But we still don't understand what happened," countered Dr. Juwon Kim. "The ship acted on its own." Captain Taehyun Park stood silently, watching the argument unfold. Since returning to Earth, he had spent every waking hour reviewing the incident. The strange message on his personal display, "First filter complete. Seven more remain," haunted him. The president finally spoke. "Captain Park, you commanded Nemesis during the incident. What is your assessment?" Taehyun stepped forward. "Madam President, I believe Nemesis was built specifically to counter these threats. The ship knew what to do when faced with the Kalurians, and I believe it's telling us there are 7 more threats to face." "You want to take the fight to them," said the president, understanding in her eyes. "Yes, rather than wait for 7 attacks, we use Nemesis as it was designed, to protect Earth by eliminating threats before they reach us." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth had never sent a military vessel beyond the solar system. The technology for such voyages had only recently been developed. "And if we don't?" asked the defense minister. Dr. Kim answered before anyone else could. "Then we risk everything. These species clearly possess technology far beyond ours. The only advantage we have is Nemesis." After hours of debate, the decision was made. Nemesis would hunt the hunters. 3 weeks later, Nemesis hovered at the edge of the solar system. The ship had been upgraded, supplied, and prepared for its mission. Its crew had been expanded to include scientists, diplomats, and additional military personnel. Taehyun stood on the bridge, looking at the vast emptiness ahead. "Status report. All systems optimal," reported Engineer Dohyun. "The ship is actually, I don't know how to describe it, eager." Others had noticed it too. Nemesis seemed to hum with purpose, its systems more responsive than ever. "First target identified," announced Hannah from the tactical station. "The Vorax Collective. Their fleet is gathering in the Proxima Centauri system." "How long until we reach them?" asked Taehyun. "At maximum speed, 3 days," replied Myung from navigation. But Nemesis had other ideas. New displays appeared on all stations, showing a system that hadn't been in any of the schematics. "Captain," called Dohyun in amazement. The ship is activating some kind of folding drive. I think it can create shortcuts through space. Before Taehyun could respond, the stars outside shifted. Space itself seemed to bend around them. And suddenly they were elsewhere. The familiar stars of home were gone, replaced by an alien sky. We're in the Proxima Centauri system, gasped Mayung, checking her instruments. The journey took less than a minute. Before them floated hundreds of ships. They were angular and predatory, covered in what looked like bony plates. As Nemesis appeared, they immediately moved to attack formation. "The Voraks are hailing us," reported Communications Officer Seojin. The message was simple. Earth vessel identified. Commencing extermination. Taehyun felt strangely calm. No response needed. Let Nemesis do what it was built to do. As before, the ship moved without input from the crew. Energy built within its systems, and that same wave of distortion spread outward. One by one, the Vorak ships simply ceased to exist, leaving only empty space. When it was over, a new message appeared on Taehyun's display. CQ filter complete. 6 more remain. The pattern repeated over the following months. Nemesis would identify a threat, transport itself instantly across vast distances, and remove the hostile species warships from reality. The Krell Empire, the Thelosian Dominion, the Myriad Consciousness, one by one, their fleets vanished. After each encounter, the count on Taehyun's display decreased. Third filter complete. 5 more remain. Then 4. Then 3. Between missions, the scientists aboard worked frantically to understand what was happening. Dr. Yoon Ji-yoon, the quantum physicist who had joined the crew, made the breakthrough. "Captain," she explained, showing him complex equations on her tablet. "Nemesis isn't destroying these ships. It's shifting them into parallel dimensions." "You mean they still exist?" asked Taehyun, troubled by the implications. "Yes, but in reality separate from ours. The ship is creating what physicists call quantum bubbles, pocket universes where these aggressive species can exist without threatening others." This revelation spread through the crew, changing how they viewed their mission. They weren't executioners. They were quarantine officers. The sixth encounter was different. As Nemesis prepared to face the Gen Collective, the alien fleet did something unexpected. Instead of attacking, they retreated, sending a single message. "We recognize the orbiter. We welati durado ador CLAEM on Earth space." For the first time, Nemesis did not activate its displacement system. Instead, it allowed the Gen to leave. The Arbiter? Taehyun wondered aloud. They know what Nemesis is. That night, as he rested in his quarters, Taehyun dreamed of ancient beings who had built Nemesis long ago, who had seeded the designs on Earth, waiting for humans to grow capable of using them. He awoke to an alarm. The final threat had been detected, that Xar Imperium, the most powerful of all the hostile species. Their fleet wasn't approaching Earth. They were targeting Nemesis directly. "They've somehow tracked our jump signatures," explained Hana as the crew rushed to stations. "They're waiting for us." Taehyun studied the tactical display. That XR fleet was massive, thousands of vessels arranged in a sphere. There would be no way to approach without being surrounded. "They know what we can do," he realized. "They're trying to overwhelm Nemesis with numbers." For the first time since their mission began, Taehyun felt doubt. Could even Nemesis handle such overwhelming force? As if sensing his thoughts, new information appeared on his display. Final filter requires complete integration. Integration, he wondered aloud. What does that mean? The answer came as a feeling rather than words. Nemesis needed him, not just as a captain giving orders, but as part of its system. Taehyun placed his hands on his command console. "All crew, stand down from your stations. Nemesis needs to handle this differently." As the crew stepped back, the ship's lights dimmed. The command chair extended, enveloping Taehyun, He felt a moment of panic, then surrendered to the process. His consciousness expanded. Suddenly, he wasn't just Taehyun Park. He was Nemesis itself. He could feel every system, understand every purpose, and he knew exactly what needed to be done. Nemesis jumped into the center of the XR fleet. But instead of the usual displacement wave, something new happened. The ship began to glow with impossible light, becoming brighter than a star. When the light faded, that XR fleet remained, but changed. Their weapons were gone, their ships transformed into peaceful vessels. On Taehyun's display, the final message appeared. All failures complete. The balance is restored. Nemesis drifted silently in deep space, far from any star system. The mission was complete. 7 threats neutralized. Earth was safe, but Captain Taehyun Park couldn't shake the feeling that something remained unfinished. He walked the quiet corridors of the ship, nodding to crew members as he passed. They looked at him differently now, with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. They had seen him merge with Nemesis during the final confrontation with the Xar Imperium. They had watched as he transformed an entire hostile fleet without destroying a single ship. Taehyun himself didn't fully understand what had happened. The memories of his integration with the ship were foggy, like a dream half remembered upon waking. He found himself drawn to a section of the ship that hadn't been in the original schematics. It had appeared after the final mission, a corridor that seemed to lead nowhere. The entrance was unmarked, but Taehyun felt it calling to him. "Captain, are you okay?" asked Hana, finding him standing before the blank wall. "There's something here," he said softly. "Something we've missed." He placed his palm against the wall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the surface rippled like water, and an opening appeared. "Should I call security?" Hana asked, her hand moving to her communicator. "No, this is meant for me." Taehyun stepped forward. "Wait here." The passage beyond was unlike the rest of Nemesis. While the ship's interior was all smooth curves and soft lighting, this corridor was angular, with surfaces that seemed to shift between solid and transparent. As Taehyun walked, he saw glimpses of other places, alien worlds, strange skies, beings unlike any he had encountered. The corridor ended in a circular chamber, empty at first glance, but as Taehyun entered, light bloomed from the center. It shaped itself into a form, not quite human, not quite alien, a being of pure energy. "Greetings, Guardian," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Who are you?" Taehyun asked, surprised by his own calmness. "We are those who came before. You call us precursors in your language." The light shifted, becoming 3 distinct shapes. "We have waited long for this moment." "You built Nemesis," Taehyun said. "It wasn't a question. We designed it, yes, but humanity built it. Only through your hands could it become what was needed." The chamber expanded, or perhaps Taehyun's perception changed. Suddenly, he was standing among stars, watching galaxies spin slowly above him. "Long ago, we faced a challenge," continued the precursor. "Life flourished across the cosmos, but something was unbalanced. Species that evolved toward aggression and conquest spread unchecked, destroying those who followed paths of cooperation and peace." Images flashed around him. Civilizations rising and falling, worlds burning, species vanishing. We sought a solution, not to destroy the aggressive species that would make us no better than them, but to separate them, to create spaces where all life could evolve according to its nature without threatening others. "The quantum bubbles," Taehyun said, recalling Dr. Yoon's explanation. "Parallel dimensions." "Yes, we created the first filter ships, vessels that could identify aggressive civilizations and transfer them to these separate realities. For millennia, we maintained the balance. But all things end. Our time passed. So you left the designs on Earth for us to find," Taehyun realized. The precursor's light brightened. "We searched for successors. We needed a species with a unique balance, capable of understanding both conflict and compassion. Humans have fought terrible wars, committed great atrocities, but you also create beauty, show mercy, sacrifice for others. You chose us because we understand both sides, Taehyun said, beginning to comprehend. Yes, you know darkness, yet choose light. This makes you perfect guardians. The chamber shifted again, showing Earth from space. Then other worlds, inhabited planets scattered across the galaxy. There are many peaceful species in this reality. Some you've met, like the Zhen, who recognize Nemesis for what it truly is. Others remain hidden, developing without interference. Your task is to preserve this balance. Taehyun thought of all they had done, removing 7 civilizations from their reality. The species we filtered, are they gone forever? No, they exist in parallel spaces where they can evolve without harming others. Perhaps one day, they too will learn balance. The filters are not punishment, but opportunity. And the final confrontation, that Kuxar weren't filtered like the others. The precursor seemed to smile, though it had no face. That was your addition to the process, Captain Park. In your integration with Nemesis, you found a third option, not to leave them in this reality unchanged, nor to remove them entirely, but to help them transform. It was unexpected and most welcome. Taehyun felt a weight lift from his shoulders. They hadn't been executioners after all, but healers of a sort. What happens now? He asked. Now Nemesis becomes truly yours. No longer our tool, but humanity's responsibility. There will be other threats, other imbalances. Nemesis will guide you to them when needed. The precursor's light began to fade. Remember, Captain Park, the greatest power is not to destroy, but to transform. You have shown you understand this. As the light dimmed, Taehyun called out, "Wait, I still have questions." "Your questions will answer themselves in time," came the fading reply. "Trust what you have learned. Trust what you feel. The balance is in your hands now." The chamber returned to normal. Taehyun stood alone, the message of the precursors settling into his mind like sediment after a storm. When he emerged from the hidden corridor, the entire senior crew waited, concern on their faces. "Captain, you were gone for hours," said Hana. "We were about to come after you," added Dohyun. Taehyun looked at them, his crew, his friends. They had followed him across the galaxy, trusting him even when they didn't understand. Now he needed to trust them with the truth. "Gather everyone in the main hall," he said. "There's something I need to tell all of you about our mission, about what Nemesis really is." Later, as Nemesis turned toward Earth, Taehyun stood on the observation deck, watching stars streak past. The ship moved differently now, with a grace that seemed almost joyful. He understood at last. Nemesis was never meant to be a weapon of war, but a tool of balance. Not a destroyer, but a guardian. And humanity's role was not to conquer the stars, but to protect them, to ensure that all life, in all its diverse forms, had the chance to grow and thrive. As if confirming his thoughts, a new message appeared on the display beside him. "The Arbeiter returns. The Guardians rise. The balance continues." Taehyun smiled. Their true journey was just beginning. The end.